More than 2,000 years ago, in the ancient kingdom of Macedonia, a prince was born who would later change the course of world history. His name was Alexander the Great. Alexander was born in 356 BC in the city of Pella. His father was the powerful King Philip II of Macedon, a brilliant military leader who had already begun expanding Macedonia's power. His mother was Olympias, a strong and mysterious woman who believed her son had a special destiny. Many ancient stories say that strange signs appeared on the night Alexander was born. Some historians wrote that the great temple of Ephesus caught fire that same night. People later believed this was a symbol that a powerful force had entered the world. From his earliest years, Alexander showed intelligence, curiosity, and strong determination. Unlike many princes who spent their days playing games, Alexander loved listening to stories about heroes and great battles. His mother often told him stories about legendary warriors and gods. These stories filled the young boy with dreams of greatness. Section 2, The Prince and the Philosopher. When Alexander was about 13 years old, his father decided that the prince needed the best education in the world. So he invited the famous philosopher Aristotle to become Alexander's teacher. Aristotle was one of the greatest thinkers of ancient Greece. Under his guidance, Alexander studied many subjects including philosophy, science, geography, medicine, and literature. Aristotle also introduced Alexander to the famous Greek epic poem the Iliad. In this story, Alexander became fascinated with the legendary warrior Achilles. Achilles was brave, fearless, and respected by all soldiers. Alexander admired Achilles so much that he kept a copy of the Iliad with him for the rest of his life. Some stories say he even slept with the book under his pillow. Through Aristotle's teaching, Alexander learned how to think deeply about the world. But he also dreamed about adventure and conquest. Section 3, The Wild Horse Bucephalus. One of the most famous stories from Alexander's youth involved a powerful horse that no one could control. A horse trader once brought a large and beautiful horse to the royal palace. The animal was strong but extremely wild. Every time someone tried to ride it, the horse became frightened and threw the rider off. King Philip II of Macedon was about to reject the horse because no one could ride it. But young Alexander carefully observed the animal. He noticed something unusual. The horse seemed frightened whenever it looked down at the ground. Alexander realized the horse was afraid of its own shadow. So he calmly turned the horse toward the sun so the shadow disappeared. Then he slowly approached the animal and gently climbed onto its back. To everyone's amazement, Alexander successfully rode the horse across the field. The horse was named Bucephalus, and it became Alexander's most loyal companion during his future battles. King Philip was deeply impressed by his son's courage and intelligence. According to ancient historians, he told Alexander, "My son, you must find a kingdom big enough for your ambitions. Macedonia is too small for you." Section 4, A Young Warrior. As Alexander grew older, he began learning the art of war from his father. King Philip had transformed the Macedonian army into one of the most powerful fighting forces in the ancient world. Their soldiers used long spears called sarissas and fought in a tight formation known as the phalanx. Alexander joined military campaigns while still very young. By the age of 16, he was already trusted to command soldiers in battle. During one campaign, Philip left Alexander in charge of the kingdom while he fought in another region. Some enemies thought the young prince would be weak and inexperienced. But Alexander quickly proved them wrong. He led an army against a rebellious tribe and successfully defeated them. After the victory, he founded a new city and named it after himself. This was only the beginning of his legendary career. Section 5, The Battle That Made Him Famous. When Alexander was 18 years old, he fought beside his father in the famous Battle of Kyrenia. This battle was fought against the powerful Greek city-states, including Athens and Thebes. During the battle, Alexander led the cavalry attack that broke through the enemy lines. His bravery and leadership helped secure a decisive victory for Macedonia. After this battle, King Philip became the most powerful ruler in Greece. And Alexander was now recognized as a brilliant young military leader. The world was about to witness the rise of one of history's greatest conquerors. When Alexander the Great became king of Macedonia, he inherited not only a powerful army but also a great dream from his father. His father, Philip II of Macedon, had planned to invade the mighty Persian Empire. At that time, the Persian Empire was the largest and most powerful empire in the world. It stretched across modern-day Turkey, Iran, Egypt, and much of Asia. Many people believed that no army could defeat Persia. But Alexander believed otherwise. In 334 BC, Alexander gathered an army of about 40,000 soldiers and began his campaign to conquer Persia. He crossed the narrow strait known as the Hellespont, entering Asia for the first time. Before starting the campaign, Alexander visited the legendary city of Troy. There, he paid tribute to the hero Achilles, whom he admired greatly. Alexander believed he was following the path of ancient heroes. Section 7, The Battle of the Granicus River. Soon after entering Asia, Alexander faced the first army of the Persian Empire. The battle took place at the Granicus River. Persian generals had positioned their soldiers on the opposite side of the river, believing the difficult terrain would stop Alexander's attack. But Alexander was known for his bold strategies. Instead of waiting, he ordered his army to charge directly across the river. The Macedonian soldiers struggled through the water while Persian arrows rained down on them. It was a dangerous moment. During the battle, Alexander himself fought in the front lines. At one point, a Persian warrior nearly killed him. But one of Alexander's loyal generals saved his life just in time. After intense fighting, the Macedonian army broke through the Persian defenses. The Battle of the Granicus ended in a major victory for Alexander. This victory shocked the Persian Empire. For the first time, the young king had defeated one of the greatest armies in the world. After the victory at Granicus, many cities in Asia Minor surrendered to Alexander without fighting. He promised to free Greek cities that had been controlled by the Persian Empire. Because of this promise, many people welcomed him as a liberator rather than an invader. Alexander moved south along the coast, capturing important cities and ports. Each victory strengthened his army and weakened the Persian Empire. But the Persian king Darius III was preparing a massive army to stop him. The two great leaders would soon face each other in one of the most famous battles in history. Section 9, The Battle of Issus. In 333 BC, Alexander and the Persian king Darius III finally met in battle. The battlefield was near a narrow coastal plain called Issus. Darius had a much larger army than Alexander. Some historians believe the Persian army had more than 100,000 soldiers. But Alexander had something even more powerful: brilliant strategy and fearless leadership. During the Battle of Issus, Alexander personally led a cavalry charge directly toward King Darius. When Darius saw Alexander approaching, he panicked and fled the battlefield. Without their king, the Persian army collapsed. Alexander won another incredible victory. Even more surprising, Darius's royal family was captured by Alexander's soldiers. But Alexander treated them with great respect, which increased his reputation as a noble leader. After the victory at Issus, Alexander continued his campaign deeper into the Persian territories. City after city fell under his control. He captured powerful cities like Tyre after a long and difficult siege. Later he marched into Egypt, where people welcomed him as a hero. In Egypt, Alexander founded the famous city of Alexandria. This city later became one of the most important centers of learning and culture in the ancient world. But Alexander was not finished yet. His ultimate goal was to completely defeat the Persian king Darius III and conquer the entire empire. The greatest battle between the two leaders was still ahead. After defeating the Persian army in the Battle of Issus, the power of Alexander the Great began to grow rapidly across the ancient world. Many cities surrendered without resistance. People had heard stories about the young Macedonian king who led his army from the front lines and never seemed afraid of danger. But the Persian king Darius III was not ready to give up his empire so easily. He began gathering one of the largest armies the world had ever seen. Soldiers came from all parts of the vast Persian Empire, from deserts, mountains, and distant provinces. Darius prepared thousands of soldiers, cavalry units, and even special war chariots equipped with sharp blades designed to break enemy formations. Alexander knew that the next battle would decide the fate of the entire Persian Empire. Section 12, The Battlefield of Gaugamela. In 331 BC, the two great armies finally met near a place called Gaugamela, located in what is now modern Iraq. King Darius carefully chose this location because the land was wide and flat. He believed the open battlefield would give his massive army and war chariots a huge advantage. Ancient historians claim the Persian army may have had more than 200,000 soldiers, while Alexander's army had only about 47,000 men. The numbers were terrifying. Many people believed Alexander's smaller army had no chance of victory. But Alexander had something the Persian army did not: discipline, strategy, and fearless leadership. The stage was set for one of the most famous battles in history. At sunrise, both armies prepared for the fight. The soldiers of Macedonia stood in tight formations known as the phalanx, holding their long spears toward the enemy. Across the battlefield, the Persian army stretched across the horizon. When the battle began, Persian war chariots rushed toward Alexander's soldiers at high speed. But Alexander had already planned for this attack. His troops opened small gaps in their formation, allowing the chariots to pass through harmlessly. Then they attacked the chariots from the sides. At the same time, Alexander moved his cavalry slowly across the battlefield, searching for the weakest point in the Persian line. He waited for the perfect moment. Section 14, The Charge of Alexander. Finally, Alexander saw his opportunity. He gathered his elite cavalry unit and charged directly toward the center of the Persian army. The attack was sudden and incredibly powerful. Alexander's soldiers pushed deep into the enemy lines, heading straight toward the position of Darius III. When Darius saw the Macedonian cavalry approaching him, fear spread across the Persian ranks. For the second time, the Persian king lost his courage and fled the battlefield. Once again, the Persian army collapsed. The Battle of Gaugamela ended with a decisive victory for Alexander. This battle destroyed the power of the Persian Empire forever. After the victory at Gaugamela, the path to the Persian capital was open. Alexander marched toward the great cities of the empire, including Babylon, which welcomed him without resistance. Soon he captured the magnificent Persian capital Persepolis. Persepolis was one of the richest cities in the ancient world, filled with treasures, gold, and priceless artifacts. The conquest of Persepolis symbolized the complete fall of the Persian Empire. At only 25 years old, Alexander the Great had become the ruler of the largest empire on earth. But Alexander was not satisfied. After defeating the powerful Persian Empire, the ambition of Alexander the Great grew even stronger. Most kings would have stopped after conquering such a huge empire. But Alexander believed his destiny was to conquer the entire known world. He began preparing his army for a long journey toward the mysterious lands of the East. These lands included regions that are now part of Afghanistan, Pakistan, and India. For Alexander and his soldiers, these territories were unknown and dangerous. They were filled with high mountains, powerful rivers, and tribes that fiercely defended their lands. But Alexander was determined to continue his march. Section 17, Through Mountains and Deserts. Alexander's army began moving through the rugged mountains of Central Asia. The journey was extremely difficult. The soldiers had to cross dangerous mountain passes, freezing climates, and long deserts. In some regions, local tribes attacked Alexander's army using surprise tactics. Despite these challenges, Alexander continued to win battles. He founded new cities along the way, many of which were named Alexandria in his honor. These cities helped spread Greek culture throughout Asia. Even today, historians believe Alexander's conquests helped connect the cultures of Europe and Asia in a unique way. One of the greatest battles of Alexander's eastern campaign happened near the Hydaspes River. There, Alexander faced a powerful local king named Porus. King Porus had a strong army that included war elephants, animals that Alexander's soldiers had never seen in battle before. The battle was extremely intense. Alexander used a clever strategy to secretly cross the river at night and surprise Porus's army. When the battle began, the elephants caused chaos among the Macedonian soldiers. But Alexander's army managed to reorganize and push forward. After a long and brutal fight, Alexander's forces finally defeated King Porus. However, Alexander was impressed by the courage of Porus. When Porus was captured and brought before him, Alexander asked how he wished to be treated. Porus answered proudly, "Treat me like a king." Alexander respected this answer and allowed Porus to remain a ruler of his land. This decision increased Alexander's reputation as a generous and honorable leader. Section 19, The army refuses to continue. After years of constant war, Alexander's soldiers had become extremely tired. They had marched thousands of kilometers from their homes in Macedonia. When Alexander proposed continuing deeper into India, the soldiers finally refused. They feared facing even larger armies and unknown dangers. For the first time in his life, Alexander could not convince his army to follow him. After days of discussion, Alexander made the difficult decision to turn back. This moment marked the end of his dream to conquer the entire world. Section 20, The long journey home. The return journey was even more difficult than the march east. Alexander led part of his army through the harsh deserts of Gedrosian Desert. Many soldiers died due to extreme heat, hunger, and exhaustion. Despite these hardships, Alexander managed to lead the surviving army back toward the western parts of his empire. Finally, he returned to the great city of Babylon. There, the young conqueror began planning new expeditions and future conquests. But history was about to take an unexpected turn. Alexander's greatest challenge was no longer an enemy army, it was fate itself. After years of endless battles and long journeys across Asia, Alexander the Great finally returned to one of the most famous cities of the ancient world, Babylon. By this time, Alexander had created one of the largest empires in history. His territories stretched from Greece in the west to the borders of India in the east. Babylon became the center of his enormous empire. The city was full of wealth, culture, and powerful leaders from different regions. Alexander began planning the future of his empire. He wanted to build new cities, improve trade routes, and connect the cultures of Europe, Asia, and Africa. Some historians believe Alexander was even preparing a new military campaign toward Arabia. Even after conquering so much of the world, Alexander's ambition had not faded. Section 22, The ambitions of a world ruler. While staying in Babylon, Alexander worked on many ambitious plans. He wanted to unite the different cultures of his empire. Greek soldiers married local women, and traditions from different regions began mixing together. Alexander also planned to build a massive navy to explore the oceans and expand trade. His dream was not only to conquer lands but to create a powerful and united world. But ruling such a massive empire was extremely difficult. Many generals and governors were competing for power. Alexander spent much of his time organizing his empire and preparing for the future. But suddenly, something unexpected happened at the year 323 BC, while still in Babylon, Alexander suddenly became very sick. Ancient historians wrote that the king developed a high fever after attending a banquet. At first, people believed it was only a small illness. But the fever continued to grow stronger day by day. Alexander, who had survived countless battles, now struggled to even stand up. His generals and friends gathered around him, worried about the future of the empire. For several days, Alexander lay in bed while his condition slowly became worse. The soldiers who had followed him across the world began to fear the worst. Section 24, The last farewell. As the illness continued, Alexander became weaker and weaker. Thousands of soldiers gathered outside the palace in Babylon, hoping to see their king one last time. According to ancient stories, Alexander allowed the soldiers to walk past his room so they could say goodbye. The once unstoppable conqueror now lay silently, unable to speak clearly. Some historians wrote that Alexander's generals asked him an important question. Who will rule your empire after you? Alexander reportedly whispered a famous answer. To the strongest. These words would soon lead to great conflict among his generals. Shortly after, Alexander the Great died in Babylon at the age of only 32. Section 25, The Mystery That Still Exists. The death of Alexander remains one of history's greatest mysteries. Some historians believe he died from diseases such as malaria, typhoid fever, or another infection common in ancient times. Others believe Alexander may have been poisoned by political enemies who feared his power. However, there is no clear evidence to prove exactly how he died. After his death, the enormous empire he created began to fall apart. His powerful generals, known as the Diadochi, started fighting each other for control of the empire. Eventually, the empire was divided into several kingdoms. Yet the legend of Alexander never disappeared. More than 2,000 years later, Alexander the Great is still remembered as one of the greatest military leaders in human history. His courage, ambition, and determination changed the course of the ancient world forever.